All right, let's kick this off. Think to yourself, what is a story I enjoy? Could be a movie you've seen recently that you thought this was great, a book you've read. Who has time for reading though anymore? Or a play that you've seen perhaps. And what are the reasons you enjoy that story? Let's kind of brainstorm though together. What are some of the stories that you enjoy? Just go ahead and shout them out. First one.
Epic fantasy.
Epic fantasy. Do you have a specific one you like?
Mistborn was pretty good.
That was the one I was going to put up. If you haven't read Mistborn and you like fantasy novels, this is a good series to read. Brandon Sanderson's just a good author altogether. Anyone else?
Jane Eyre.
Jane Eyre.
Oh, came up in that one too.
Yes, it did. Jane Eyre was another one.
Harry Potter. There you go.
Harry Potter. You are now friends with Ted.
A tie. Or just for today.
Yeah, like Heidi.
Which one?
Heidi.
Heidi. Oh. I think I've seen a movie based on
It's probably just.
I'm sorry.
I'm so out of the class and the ones everyone else loves, but.
Beyonders.
Beyonders. Brandon Mole.
Yep.
Another good series. Yes. Go ahead and just start yelling them out, and I'll write them as fast as I can.
Piggy in the Puddle.
Piggy in the Puddle.
Jack Reacher.
Jack Reacher. Ooh. I'm going to throw Unbroken up here. I really like that story.
So similar to the Rings.
Lord of the Rings?
Pride and Prejudice.
Helped my life do this.
Yes, it did. I've heard that one 3 times and seen this BBC 6-hour version 3 times with my wife. It's her favorite one. Anything else? We're going to stop there. One more.
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Hitchhiker's Guide. Oh, God. How do they spell that? Is it 2 words? Hitchhikers? Should have stopped in the previous one. Now I feel silly. Yeah, there's an H in there in case that's 2 words. What are the reasons you enjoy those stories?
There's good suspense.
Suspense? Go ahead and just shout them out.
Exploration of story. I mean, main character is what I was going to say.
Exploration.
Character development.
Character development.
Connections to my own life.
What was that one?
Connections to my own
Connections to
life.
your own life.
Sometimes escape from the
That's true. Escape.
The narrative voice.
Sometimes to contain a message.
Message. Scrap.
There's a purpose. The storyteller has a purpose that they're trying to get across, whether it's like a moral lesson or if it's just something that they're trying to drive at, right? They're trying to end up saying something by the end of the story.
It's true. A lot of stories will end up having that underlying moral, and many of them too, along the way. Yeah.
To experience genius.
To experience
Genius.
genius.
I think a lot of us like stories because they entertain us.
Entertain. I'm going to put up here, because these ones feel like, to me, you're talking a lot about sort of the emotion of something too. You feel some sort of emotional connection with either the characters or the situation. It resonates with something within you. Can you tap that next one for me? Thanks, Ted. That's why I pay him so much. This is a quote from a great book, Immediate Fiction by Jerry Cleaver. And it just kind of talks again about emphasizes the reasons we love stories. Can I get someone to read this for me real quick? Mel?
Dan.
Dan, I'm sorry.
One syllable name, you're good.
Dan.
Stories need. We don't just happen to have stories, we need them. The story process involves the kinds of experiences we must talk about. Experiences we can't wait to tell someone, experiences we can't stand not to talk about. Stories are us. We live by stories, our own and those of others, real and imagined. It's how we relate and stay connected on the most personal and intimate level. We need stories, the story process to maintain our balance and our identity. story, the story process, is the active ingredient in all meaningful social interaction. Believe it or not, it's one of our deepest social needs.
I like that. As I read that too, or as you read that, I should say, not only reading stories came to mind, but creating stories as well. We are very much all of us storytellers whenever we're in groups with friends and someone shares a story. Don't you have a story come to mind like, oh, I have something I want to share. That happened to me, or I can one of you. This happened, it was way worse, sort of thing. We're always thinking of stories and wanting to share, and we have, again, a purpose behind those stories. All right, I'm gonna pass the time to Ted.
All right, so stories, I'm gonna talk about a little bit about story structure. That's one of my favorite things to do on the side. I write, and so to help me be a better writer, I've really tried to study story structure. That's me looking at watching movies for the rest of my family, a horrible experience. Because I'll be like, okay, this is what's gonna happen next. My teenage daughters hate it. Even the one who's a writer, she'll start picking it up. So I guess really the one that's not, the 13-year-old can't stand it. She's like, Dad, you're gonna ruin it. And I usually do. Hallmark movies, it's the easiest thing in the world to do. You don't have to study story structure to know that with Hallmark movies, because you can know within a certain time period, the next 5 minutes they're gonna kiss, and they usually do within about 2. But every story has this basic structure. You have the beginning, middle, and end. And then, you'll see the act 1, act 2, act 3, that comes over from place. There's the first act, second act, and third act. Well, the first act is all the setup. And then you're gonna have an event that happens here that pushes the story forward. Then you have the whole middle part of the story, that act 2. You break that up into 2 points. In the middle of that is the middle of the story. And then you have this last third, and you end with the story. Has anyone ever read a really just horrible book or watched a horrible movie where it just fell flat? Usually what happens is the placement of these are called plot points. The placement of those is off. It's not where it really should be. All successful stories, they follow this structure, and they're really close to where it is. I mean, this image I have up here tells you approximately what page in the script for this one, on movie script. This one says at about the 80 to 90% range, or page range. If it's a 100-page script, you're going to have this, or 20 to 30, but they fall in that area. So you have all those components. Every good story has those. If it's a story that falls flat, it's missing something out of that, usually. And it hasn't been executed correctly. Yeah. So one of the things we're going to talk about today, and I tweeted out a video of where this comes from, the video we're going to watch today on the hero's journey. Is anyone familiar with the hero's journey concept? So Joseph Campbell really looks at every story, every movie, every book has these certain components to it, this hero's journey. There's always the hero, and they always go on a journey. We'll talk a little bit about how sometimes you don't have all of these pieces, and maybe they're in a little bit different order, but most stories have most of this. And so we're going to play a video that explains this a lot better than I do, and it's just a fun video to watch. But after that, we're going to talk a little more.
What did Harry Potter, Katniss Everdeen, and Frodo all have in common with the heroes of ancient myths? What if I told you they are all variants of the same hero? Do you believe that? Joseph Campbell did. He studied myths from all over the world and published a book called The Hero with a Thousand Faces, retelling dozens of stories and explaining how each represents the monomyth or hero's journey. So, what is the hero's journey? Think of it as a cycle. The journey begins and ends in the hero's ordinary world, but the quest passes through an unfamiliar, special world. Along the way, there are some key events. Think about your favorite book or movie. Does it follow this pattern? Status quo, that's where we start. 1 o'clock, call to adventure. The hero receives a mysterious message, an invitation, a challenge. 2 o'clock, assistance. The hero needs some help, probably from someone older, wiser. 3 o'clock, Departure. The hero crosses the threshold from his normal, safe home and enters the special world and adventure. We're not in Kansas anymore. 4 o'clock. Trials. Being a hero is hard work. Slays a monster. Escape. 5 o'clock. Approach. It's time to face the biggest ordeal, the hero's worst fear. 6 o'clock. Crisis. This is the hero's darkest hour. He faces death and possibly even dies, only to be reborn. 7 o'clock. Treasure. As a result, the hero claims some treasure, special recognition, power. 8 o'clock. Result. This can vary between stories. Do the monsters bow down before the hero, or do they chase him as he flees from the special world? 9 o'clock. Return. After all that adventure, the hero returns to his ordinary world. 10 o'clock. New life. This quest has changed the hero. He has outgrown his old life. 11 o'clock. Resolution. All the tangled plot lines get straightened out. 12 o'clock. Status quo, but upgraded to a new level. Nothing is quite the same once you're a hero. Many popular books and movies follow this ancient formula pretty closely, but let's see how well The Hunger Games fits the hero's journey template. When does Katniss Everdeen hear a call to adventure that gets the story moving? When her sister's name is called from the lottery. How about assistance? Is anyone going to help her on her adventure? Hey, Mitch. What about departure? Does she leave her ordinary world? She gets on a train to the capital. Okay, so you get the idea. What do you have in common with Harry Potter, Katniss Everdeen, and Frodo? Well, you're human, just like them. The hero's journey myth exists in all human cultures and keeps getting updated because we humans reflect on our world through symbolic stories of our own lives. You leave your comfort zone, have an experience that transforms you, and then you recover and do it again. You don't literally slay dragons or fight Voldemort, but you face problems just as scary. Joseph Campbell said, "In the cave you fear to enter lies the treasure you seek." What is the symbolic cave you fear to enter? Auditions for the school play? Baseball tryouts? Love? Watch for this formula in books, movies, and TV shows you come across. You will certainly see it again. But also be sensitive to it in your own life. Listen for your call to adventure. Accept the challenge. Conquer your fear and claim the treasure you seek. And then do it all over again.
All right, so I think one of my favorite lines out of that video was about in that the cave that we fear to enter lies the treasure we seek. That's one of the great powers of story, is it helps us, even if we're getting entertained by a story, there's something that's going to push us to enter that cave that we really don't want to go into, and we'll find a treasure. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to jump into taking what we just watched in that video and applying it to a story that most of us are pretty familiar with.
How many of you got a handout when you walked into the room? Did anyone not get one? Okay. I'm going to come back and grab this real quick to help distribute it. So as you can see on the screen there, we're going to be reviewing a story. We chose The Prodigal Son. Who can give me a recap of what The Prodigal Son was about? In like 30 seconds. Yes, please.
I was just.
Quickly, 10 seconds.
Okay. So this man has two sons. One decides to go and seek his fortune. In the process, he squanders everything he received from his father. He returns, and his father welcomes him, and his brother is a little upset because he feels like he has worked all the time with his father and he should receive more than he has.
Awesome. That was perfect. Thank you so much. What we're going to do is we're going to apply now the prodigal son story to the hero's journey. you have on your sheet of paper in front of you, oh, can I get one of these? 12 steps outlined there. And I want you to get together with someone close to you. So maybe like they're sitting next to you, you're set, maybe you have to turn around or turn to your side, get into groups of 2 or 3. Create the hero's journey, or break it down, the prodigal son story using the hero's journey. So where in the prodigal son do we have a call to adventure? Where do we see a departure or trials, approach, crisis? What is the treasure that the prodigal son gets? Where does he return, or when does he return, and what was different after that? So take 5 minutes. 5 minutes was good last time. Take 5 minutes. We'll give you a 1-minute warning. Just start working with your partner. Their scriptures are up there, and use this to kind of outline, right? All right, verse 1 is where this happens. So as we're kind of wrapping up, how was it? How did you do? Where did you find some of these stories? What verse did you guys find departure in, for example?
Yeah. Verse 12.
Verse 12?
Is it not?
13.
13? Okay. How about crisis? Where's crisis?
When he's starting?
No.
Yeah, 14 to 16.
So 14, okay.
What?
13 is a crisis,
Well, we said that Christmas was,
15 to 16.
okay.
yeah,
Or he's
with the pigs.
Okay, how about his treasure? What was his treasure in the story?
17, 18, when he comes to himself.
17, 18?
We said it was his self-knowledge. I will arise and go back to my father and say I've sinned. So that was his treasure, was that he came to himself and realized.
If you want to just tap it. This is, so we did this too, kind of like, well, if we're going to make other people do it, we should do it and make sure it works. We went through and we outlined these 12 verses. This is what we came up with. And as I heard you talking, it's different from what you found, which is okay. Stories follow this general structure, but people will identify with different things. I think that's what makes a story so powerful, is that you will find something in it that is very applicable and personal to you. And it may be different from someone else, and it may be different from what the author intended, and that's okay. Also, some of the things I want to point out as well, for example, on 5, approach, we didn't really see a strong sense of the approach in the prodigal son story. Maybe some of you did find it. Yeah.
Well, we said 4 was the trials, and then 5 was giving into temptation.
Awesome. And maybe that, and so that would be a really great way of looking at it, and I didn't even see that. So giving into temptation is the approach of that ultimate trial. What was the ultimate trial you found? What verse? The crisis.
Look at the scripture numbers, sorry.
No, that's okay.
We said the crisis was in 16, where he realized that to me, the crisis is where like everything changes. Here it all comes to a head, now it changes. It was when he was eating.
Awesome. Yeah.
And with that, it's the fact that he left to go have fun, right? In a broad sense. So he's come to the point where he can no longer do that, right? He can't do it
Everything's
anymore.
falling apart on
Everything's
his
falling
journey.
apart.
Great. So as you've seen, we've all kind of pulled a lot of things out of this. This is what we got. But one thing I really want to stress as well is, and Ted mentioned this before earlier, the hero's journey has these steps to kind of guide you through it. Some of them are always going to be very prevalent and strong. Some of them may not be as much. Maybe he doesn't receive assistance as strongly. He did in this story with his father. But there may be stories where that is a very subtle or downplayed element that just may not be as prevalent. So as you are going through creating your stories, don't feel like you need to be on a check mark saying, all right, I got this and I got this. But let these kind of help you plot out, all right, so crisis is pretty important. I want to have a crisis in my story because that's the challenge that needs to be overcome. What is a crisis? Do I want assistance in this? So that kind of helps you create a framework as you're going forward with your not only instruction, but designing as well. Can you tap the next one for me? Thanks, Ted. So there's some quotes we got for you. These are kind of quotes that help demonstrate what makes narratives have such a powerful impact on learning. This one is the one I want to focus on for you, but these are all from educational. I'm blanking now. Research papers. Sorry. Could someone read this quote for me, please?
I really appreciate it when the instructors take the course content and relate it to their own personal experiences. I relate the readings to my own life, and when they share their ideas and experiences, I learn so much from them.
And this was actually a quote from Tricia, who is a BYU-Idaho OLT student. I found this from an interaction we had in a conference a couple of years ago. And for designers, I feel like this is a really important thing to recognize is she points out how we relate it to our own personal experiences. And that's what we want to do with the story, is help create those connections with our learners, with as they're going through our courses, to really drive home the relatability that can be found in the content that you were teaching. Can you tap the next one for me? This was one of my favorite research articles. It took stories and basically categorized them, stories used in education, into 4 areas. One is narrative-based, scenario-based, problem-based, and case-based. And it depends on your ultimate objective. What are you trying to accomplish with this story? For narrative, they said these stories are ones that are striving to have an emotional engagement. The problem and solution are always fixed, but it demonstrates a causality of linear events. Other ones, for example, problem-based, is when a story is minimally structured. Give them some information. What would you do if this was your situation? So these are some ways that you can kind of approach your story base. Say, I want to use a story here. How can I use it? What is my goal? And for instructors, I would say this is a way that you can kind of, when you're just interacting with your students in discussion boards and in other scenarios, you can say, all right, I want to share a story that is emotionally engaging. I don't really want to open-end it, but I want to give them an opportunity to
It's 12 o'clock.
It's 12 o'clock. And sometimes it may be a scenario then where you have a fixed solution, but the person has an opportunity to interact, or even just a problem-based one where they are presented with an opportunity to work through and declare what they would do on their own. So you have an opportunity also as instructors to use any of these ideas in your courses.
I'm going to skip forward a few slides here.
Sorry, we combined our presentations. I had some.
All right, so I want to throw out, now I'm going to focus on some things that are really specific to like what I've done as a designer. So if you're an instructor, these are things, think about this and look at what possibilities, what things could you do or could be done in your courses if you wanted to try to improve the course. Maybe there's a topic that students have a hard time with where a story might be helpful. Well, if you look at the examples that I share, go ahead and if a light bulb comes on, you're like, oh, we could do this. Go ahead and suggest that. That's a great thing to be able to do. So when I'm trying to do something, and we do this with any activity we design, we look at, what's the purpose, what are we trying to solve, and how are we going to solve it? So with story, what I do is I look at, what's the whole reason I'm going to use that story? Because I've learned if I put it in there without having a really good reason for it, it just doesn't work. The students don't, it goes back to what we said up here, there's a purpose behind it. So with story, there really needs to be a purpose. And I really need to go into some of the story structure we looked at, what problem am I trying to be solved? So my hero in this story, what are they trying to accomplish? What are they chasing after? And then I have to figure out, how do I want to share it? It could be text, it could just be words on the screen. It could be a podcast, it could be audio that they're listening to, or it could be a video. And I have, in the examples that I'll share, I'll talk about how I've used each of those. There's actually a video we put in the course that I'll be talking about today that's been done that solved a design problem or design challenge that the foundations group, they had a question, and I'll show you how they solved it. But one, I'm going to just throw out a best practice, start with an outline. Me being a writer, that's the way to do it. If you don't do an outline, you just start writing and see where it goes. They call that pantsing or flying by the seat of your pants. It works, but eventually you're going to have to come back and create some sort of outline to make sure that you've hit all the points that you want to. So starting with an outline is good. Can you go to the next one for me? Of course. All right. So I want to talk about, it's FIDINT 211. It's a Pakistan course. So Is there anyone that has papers that students have to write their courses? Or designing courses where they have papers? We get that a lot. What about group work? We all have some sort of group work in there. Do students love to write papers? Do they love group work? Do you ever hear about, why do I have to write a paper? I don't want to write a paper. I don't want to do group work. How does this relate to my major? This doesn't do anything. Well, in this Pakistan class, it's not tied to any major. It's a foundations course. And so the complaint students would be like, why do we have to do these projects? And I'm like, man, when I looked at what was there, I'm like, man, this is really boring. I'm like, they have to write a case study, they have to create a topic presentation. They had to do, it's called the Futures Project, that take all the information that they learned about Pakistan, but apply it to another country. And I mean, they were good assignments, but there wasn't anything to get the students excited about it. So we came up with the idea of having them work as an intern at a fictional company. It was called the Pakistan Research Group. So to do that, we created, and it was just a little memo we put up there, but it was a welcome to our company. You're going to be an intern, and it was a letter like you would get if you were going to be an intern at any company in the world, saying, welcome to our company, here's what you're going to do as an intern. So they had to read that. Then we also had a page that said, here's the projects. Since you're doing these projects and you're involved in a group, we expect at this company you to participate. We expect you to work hard. We expect your writing to be excellent. Aren't those things we want from our students anyway in a group project or on paper? We want them to participate at a high level, and we want them to write well, which is challenging sometimes. But so we had that. We really just wanted to find an alternate way to make it fun. And so we put in a little audio clip about, and I think I did one of the audio clips, and I was the intern manager saying, hey, welcome to the team. Really glad you're here. This is going to be an awesome experience. You're going to learn. And you're going to help us create things. And what we spun it as, you're writing content that companies like the LDS Church or the Red Cross or anyone who's going to do partnerships with Pakistan, or they're doing humanitarian aid with Pakistan, that they need to know about Pakistan, they come to us to learn this information. And so we put that whole spin on it, so there was a purpose to why they were doing those assignments, other than you're doing this assignment because it meets the objectives of the course, which it did do that. But students don't always think about think in terms of objectives. They think of, what am I going to learn here? And ultimately, they were able to, those skills that they built will bleed into every other course that they do and every job that they have. So that was what we did with that course. And for the most part, what I can understand, students enjoyed it because it was a different approach. Now, that approach, going back to the goals, that won't work for every single course. And that's the thing you have to look at if you're going to use narrative is and Tyler talked about the 4 different types of story you can use. You have to think, what is the right one? That approach probably might not work in a chemistry class or a math class. For that Pakistan class, it worked okay. But yeah, we just built that in at the beginning of the class and told students, hey, you're going to be part of a fictional company, and you're going to be an intern, and here's what you're going to do. Just as an alternate way to get them engaged and to give them some buy-in. And here, it wasn't really so much of a story, it was definitely more of a scenario than a narrative, but the character that they were really buying into was Pakistan Research Group. They were a member of that company. And so they were able to buy into that a little bit. Now, in the keynote earlier, President Gilbert talked about the English language courses. I have been blessed with the opportunity to work on those, and it's been amazing. And one of the things that they have, when you're learning language, you obviously need to see how people are having a conversation. So in this class they have, and I'll tell you the design challenge that I've faced, they have these different little mini stories. Carlos and John are having a conversation about something. And then Peter and Carlos are having a conversation. And then other people are having a conversation. But when you look at, if I were to put them all up on the wall, there's no connecting point between all of them. Just random things. It goes from somebody's father died to they're chilling at a country concert. And it's in the same lesson. So that was the design challenge that I'm facing right now. It's like, okay, when a student takes this, what is it helping them really learn? What's the purpose? So we have all these different, we even noticed that there's some that are story and some that's more just expository text saying, here's what's going on. And sometimes that works, but in this course, it doesn't seem like that's the case. So if you'll hit next, I'll show you kind of what I have my students build, because when a student goes into this course, they don't know who John is, they don't know who Carlos is, it's just a name on a page. There's no, it's not like a book to where you're like, hey, I know who this person is, here's why I want to relate to them, here's why I care that I'm reading this story. So we created these characters, and we're hoping in one of the courses to get these characters in. We have Vincenzo Capaldi and Kim, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce the last name. But we created this so students can see who these people are as a way. And this is just one element of a story. You want to know who characters are. Now, we could have this out there for students to see, or this could just be for instructors to see. But if I'm going to write, because we have these dialogues going on throughout the course, if you're going to use that approach, you have to know who those people are, so you can, when you're writing, you know, okay, what situation am I going to put Carlos in, or am I going to put Vincenzo in? Well, I know that he and his wife, their first child was either lost them from miscarriage or stillborn. Well, when I get writing later on, and you're talking about helping others, it's really easy to think of a scenario. Someone in their ward or in their pathway group, the wife just, you know, they just lost a child. He can really relate to that, and they can have a dialogue about asking help. It can be, you know, how can I help you? You know, I understand what you're going through because my wife and I had the same thing. There's that connection there. That's not the ultimate thing that they're learning, but we are trying to help people be better and understand how to be disciples. It's an easy way to teach gospel principles too, is through story. And if you read through this, you'll really quickly be able to tell what one of my favorite TV shows is. But let's see. That's on the next one. So there's that one, and I want to give us some time to practice here in a minute. But go to the next one. So we had that, and then the next step that we did is we mapped it out. Okay, in each of the lessons, knowing what the objectives were for that lesson, we could build these scenarios, saying, okay, this is what they're going to do in each one. The arena we're going to have them in. Okay, we're going to put Kim. She's at a YSA fireside, so we can put her in a scenario where she's learning to practice saying certain things, or you know, they're helping someone move. They're planning a birthday party. So different things that someone who's learning English, some basic skills that they need to learn, but we're putting it in a real context. And let's see, what is the next one? Okay, there's one more, and if we can, I'll have you show up. But I wanted to throw this one out there because I mentioned it. But so with the foundations, they had a problem. Students always ask, why do I have to take a foundations course? Why is it important? And they wanted them to know why it's important. So they were going to set up, you know, a row of chairs and some tables, and have instructors on this side, talk about why it's important. And they were going to record it and put it in the course. How many people think students would probably sit down and watch, you know, a 15-minute video about that?
No.
Who in here would sit down and watch a 15-minute video on that? And then it would be interesting. There's important information that they need to know, but that's not what's going to work for them. So Brian Carter, who works on videos for the online courses, I think they approached him. I don't remember the whole story, but he said, yeah, they're not going to watch that. So he spun another idea. What they did is he created a character who is on an internship in Georgia, and he's just at this company, and you see everything that's going on for him. But there's little moments in this 3-day period that you're seeing where someone's like, how did you learn that? And he's like, it was in this math class or in whatever class. And they tried not to make it very punch you in the face. This is why you need to value foundations. But it's very subtle. But you totally buy into this character because he's leaving, he's there, And then he has this trial, just like the video we watched. He gets to this dark moment where it's like, wow, what's he gonna do? And you really just buy into it. But it was a great way to use a story to accomplish what they needed to. And it's the reason I bring that one up is we can use video as well. You get me started on this topic, I can go forever. So that's why I have my outline to stay on topic. We go to the next one.
Mhm.
I'm going to use this. This ties a little bit to the hero's journey, and it ties with what I talked about earlier. But I throw this one out there. If you have, for the designers especially, if you're meeting with a course lead and you want to use a story and you know there's a topic, give them these questions, let them answer it. If they can answer those questions, then you've got something you can really work with. If you know it, you can answer them too. And if you have some ideas of how you might use story in your course, look at these. What are you going to try to accomplish? Why are you trying to teach it? And answer those questions. Those are really good things to think about to help you figure out what you need to do. All right, so what I want to do is I want to take a design challenge in any of the courses, either you're designing or in your course, someone throwing out, and then together, let's see if we can come up with how we might be able to use narrative or some sort of story to solve that problem. Anybody have one they want to throw out? Think on that for a minute.
Want me to erase the board?
Yeah, we can do that.
Well, this is really basic, I don't know if that's what you
Okay.
want, but in my class, discussion boards get to be really minimal. I agree. Yeah, that's what I would say about it. So I've been thinking about ways you can use storytelling to ask deeper questions and invoke stronger responses from your students. So how would that work?
Okay, that's actually really, really good. Any other designers in here or anyone want to throw out how that might work? I have an idea, but I will. I've been talking a lot, so I'll let someone else talk too.
What was the question one more time?
Oh, actually, I have an example from a course I can tell you. So there, worked on it was Intro to Mormonism, and it ended up being, we started using it as a way to get them to do their writing assignments, but then we shifted it because for Intro to Mormonism, you either have to have been a member less than a year or a non-member to take it. So one of the things we did is we created a scenario, so going back to our 4 types, and it's John and Bill are in the lunchroom. Bill's asking questions, and this is a really simplified version. Bill's asking questions about the church. He has some misunderstandings, and John is there. Well, Peter comes in, and John says, "Hey, Peter, he has this question. What do we say?" And so the discussion board is, what should, knowing all that you studied this week in this lesson, what should John and Peter's response be to Bill? Include, references, links to videos they might share. And then that gives them context for it. And it was really interesting because the students really, the quality of the discussion boards really improved because of what they put in there. And we got lucky enough to where, we had a little image that a student drew of, John, Bill, and Peter in the lunchroom talking. So you're creating this whole scene, this whole narrative, and it pulls you out from thinking, oh boy, another discussion board, to, hey, someone has a question that I can answer. I can help someone. That's one of the great things you can do, is it'll help you help someone. Susan.
It all goes back to that first question you have up there, what am I trying to accomplish? I was working on a course where we were having students look into, there's construction safety, and they're looking into personal protective equipment, which personally I know nothing about. And I thought the best way for students to even get slightly interested in that is to present them with a story. So in this instance, construction workers fell off the roof, and now we need to get and die, but they couldn't. And now we need to go shopping for new personal protective equipment. So sending them out to actually experience what it is to look for this kind of equipment, figure out what's the best deal. because they're already involved in a fictional company. But just having them think about it in that way rather than saying, go find, this is personal protective equipment, go find out what it costs. Which is really what we're asking them to do in the first place.
I think that's a really good one, because the benefit of using storytelling techniques, and you can use a lot, you can use just a few of them, is it pulls students out of the course and it gets them out into the real world. It gets them experiencing their content rather than just reading it. And we know that when they're experiencing it, they're going to learn it better, and it's going to change them. What time do we end? 12:20. Okay.
Yeah.
So one of the last things I'll throw out there is one of the easiest, because some subjects it's hard to figure out how in the world am I going to use storytelling concepts to do this. We had someone earlier ask about, I hope you can help me figure it out with math. I'm like, you got the wrong designer in here. But luckily she's in here now. So if you have math questions, talk to me. But putting in the gospel connection to our courses, easiest way to bring in story. Helping students understand how to connect to the gospel. That's a really easy way, whether it's connecting personally with your own stories or pulling in stories from a lot of the apostles. But I think I really challenge you to look for ways in courses you're designing, courses you're teaching, find ways that you can use storytelling techniques to help engage students, because that's really what it's about. I know that it does work. I'm grateful I had the opportunity to present, and that's all that I have. Does anybody have any questions? If you do, ask time.
Thanks.
But no, we posted everything in our online community. Go ahead and we put this out in our other one. If you have a challenge you're trying to solve, or go ahead and post it here in our story practice sharing. The other course, we invited people to do the same, and even to put, hey, here's a problem I need to solve. Help me. Go in there and look to see what other people are saying. Try to help them. And
I would just add that there's one that says instructor focused. That's the one in this image. Go to the one that says designer focused, and you will get more with your audience. But
link to the foundations videos in there. But thank you.
Yeah. Oh, and resources. If you're ever interested, we have our resources here. They're also on your handout, so feel free to read through those. A lot of great material in there that you can reference. Thanks.
Thank you.